Okay. Ladies and gents, come on. Let us put our hands together. Can we have some copies of the book, please? If I fall for this chair, Jesus. God bless you, Faith. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
One more time, come on, let's put our hands together and appreciate him. "40 things I learnt by 40." First question naturally would be, why did you write this book?
Okay, thanks, Charles. So when I was turning 40, I began to look back over my life. And as most of you would do when you're getting to that significant age in your life, whether 20 or 30. Well, I don't think 20, because when you're 20, life is still good. But when you start getting to 30, for the ladies more especially, they begin to ponder. But for men, I think it's 40. When we start approaching 40, we start looking for what we've actually achieved with our lives. And, people had great dreams back then to say, when I'm 40, I want to be a millionaire, I want to be a billionaire, and all of that. So it was about probably about 50 to 40 days before my birthday. And I was looking at 40, and my bank balance was not going in the positive direction. It was going in the negative. And I was like, something is up here. And as I began to think and ponder and just wonder, what's happening with my life, the thought just came to me that you've actually learned so much. And some of those lessons, you've put them to practice and they've worked for you. Some of them and you haven't practiced. And possibly, that's where you are. And, so that awakening just came to me. And I said, you know what? I have achieved something with my life, even if it's what I've learned. And I decided I was going to write an email to all my close friends. Every single day, I would write them an email with a lesson I had learned for 40 days. And that's how the book came about, because every night from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., I'll sit up and think and pen down some of the things I'd learned, and then I'll share it during the day. And after doing that for about 10 days, so many of my friends began to call, began to email me, text me and say, you know what, this is great material. You have to put it in the book. And I was like, yeah. I'll do that at some point. And it wasn't until last year, on my way to Amsterdam, I was sitting comfortably in my seat.
I want you to, don't rush this story. That's why we need to be, you're going to hear this story. When I got to find out the details about this particular incident, you then can see the importance of prayer. Because this guy could have very easily have been a dead man with one wrong move. Take us back to that point. You were on an EasyJet flight. Take us from there.
Okay, so I was on an EasyJet flight going out to Amsterdam. And as I sat down, right there on my seat, the guy on my right was asleep, and the guy on my left was reading. And I began to text a friend of mine, actually, Aaron. So for once, he got me into trouble. So I was texting him, and I was asking him if he was joining a prayer. And all of a sudden, the guy that was sleeping beside me woke up. I don't know when he woke up, but I just heard him saying, "What do you mean by prayer?" And in my mind, I was like, okay, here we go. An atheist that's going to challenge me about if there's a God or there's no God. And I said, but I don't understand your question. Can you, elaborate on it? And he was like, yeah, I saw you typing prayer on your phone. What do you mean by prayer? And I said, I pray with my friends. I was quite shocked at this time. And he said, fine. And then about 2 minutes later, this man gets up. He says he's going to the bathroom. And then he goes to the front of the plane and begins to talk to the air hostess. And they're there for a while, the plane is not moving, our flight time has gone past. Then he comes back and he says, oh, I'm feeling really unwell and I want to get off the plane. And so he packs all his belongings and then he goes back to the front of the plane again. And again, we're waiting and nothing's happening. Then all of a sudden, 2 armed police officers come onto the plane. And then everything begins to click in my mind. And then they come right to where I'm sitting.
Osama.
And then they ask me to hand over my phone. So I hand over my phone. And I say, is there a problem? And they said I should get up and take all my belongings and come off the plane. And so I took all I had. And then we went off the plane. And I kept asking, is there a problem? They said they would tell me when we get into the terminal building. So we got into the terminal building. There were probably about 10 detectives waiting for me. So I got in there, and they said hello. And before they said anything, I said, is it about the message that the guy read on my phone? That, well, I'm actually a Christian, and I had a massive Bible in my bag.
Carry your Bible. Those of you that want it on your phone now, carry your Bible.
And the funny thing is I usually carry it on my phone, but for some reason I had a massive one in my bag.
Jesus.
And so I brought it out and I said, I'm actually a Christian. And then he asked me a few more questions. He said, have I been dissatisfied with my faith at any time? And I said, well, not that I can think of. I told him the church I go to, House on the Rock, London. Pastor Temi is here, the resident pastor of House on the Rock. And he asked a few more questions. And then he now came back to me and said he doesn't really see anything wrong that I've done. And so he radioed back the plane to say they should let me on. And the pilot said, no, that it's best I go on the next flight.
A terrorist.
But apparently, very interestingly, the pilot had announced when I was taking off the plane that the police were responding to a terror threat, even before the police had told him what the situation was. And so when I got back to the check-in desk to get on the next flight, about 7 other people had come off the flight because they didn't feel comfortable flying on that plane anymore. And then they came to the desk and they saw me. And then one of the ladies now shouted to the lady behind the desk, said, if he's on the flight, I'm not going on the flight. And at this point, the policeman escorting me was quite upset. And he said, do I have your permission to talk to these ladies? I said, yeah, by all means. So he went to explain to them what actually happened. And funnily enough, when we got back on the next flight, they actually put one of the ladies to sit beside me. And so
that flight could not have been comfortable for that lady.
I was gracious. I made her feel comfortable, and she apologized so much and said she had mixed it up. So she was the one that told me what the pilot said and why I was taking off the plane. And so it was at that point, a lot of thoughts ran through my mind, and I began to think, if for some reason, the police were not too happy that morning, or I had decided to argue with them, it could have led to anything.
Aaron would have been the last person to speak to you. I just spoke to him.
And so at that point, again, a lot of thoughts came back to my mind, and I was like, I have to make my life count, and I have to do better with my life. I mean, things had improved so much from when I had written these emails. And then I spoke to a friend who, at the time I was writing the emails, he sent me a message and he said, look, this is book material, and whenever you need to put this in a book, just let me know. I will design it for you. I'll put it all together for you, absolutely free of charge. And that's what he did when I called him. And so we had the book.
Who's the friend?
He's called Ade. Ade Ajitumobi. And that's how the book came to life. It's now available on Amazon as a hard copy, as an ebook, and as an audiobook as well.
So see me, hear me, read me. So if you don't like carrying books, you can listen.
Yeah.
If you don't like buying books, you can download. Somebody might say, I've already crossed the 40 mark. This book is not for me. You say.
Okay. So two of the people that really encouraged me to publish this book. One of them is Pastor Tunde, and he's here tonight. He had already gone over 50 at the time I was doing the writings, and he was like, "Wow, this is really good, and I'm learning so much from it, and I think you should publish this in the book." The other person was Auntie Millicent. She's over 60 at the time she read the book, and she was blown away by it and kept on saying, you know, even though you're young enough to be my son, I still learned so much from you. So they really encouraged me with the material in this book. And I don't think it's just for anyone who's 40. I think it's for everyone who has come to that point of self-realization that they need to do something with their life, because the lessons are applicable across board. I didn't learn the lessons at 40. I learned them way before 40. I just recounted them at 40. And I think it's for everyone.
Okay, I think we're going to take, come on, let's put our hands together. I think we'll take 2 questions from the floor, and Faith, if we can get maybe a question from social media as well. So if you have a question, we have a third microphone here. Can someone come and take this? Someone take this mic and just take a couple of questions. Thank you. So if you have a question, just quick raising of your hand. Okay, let's go.
Hi. So, what do you say to somebody who's got an idea, who's got something that they've been wanting to do? What do you say to them? How do they actually take that step from thinking about it, being encouraged to do it, to actually getting it done?
It's very simple, and the answer is just do it. It's as simple as that. So life is moving past quickly, and I think when, especially for men, when you get into 40, you become conscious of that. But you don't have to wait for a landmark season in your life to know that life is passing you by. Every day counts. And so if you have ideas, you need to go for them. One of the chapters in this book talks about the philosophy of a failure. And one of the things I learned with the philosophy of a failure is that sometimes we're so afraid of failing that we refuse to do anything. But it's actually in our failure that we get to learn. When I thought about having this book launch on the boat and everything, it was quite challenging, and thank you to the team that has worked with me to make it a reality. And I thought at one point, say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do this. Because at the time I conceived the idea to do this, there was enough money in the bank to do it. But when I now announced it to my friends and to the team that were going to help me out, all of a sudden, somehow, all of that money disappeared. And so I was down. It wasn't possible at that point in time.
Your wife spent it. Yes.
You know, she's a good woman. And so I just had to do it. And I told my friends and my wife one day, I said, what's the worst that can happen? And I can fail at this, and I can fail terribly, but I'm willing to fail. I'm going to do it anyway. If it fails, that's great. What I'm going to take away from it are lessons, so that when next I do it, I'll do it better. And it's that philosophy, what I call the philosophy of a failure, that makes me keep doing things. And there's a possibility of failure in anything. There's a possibility of risk in anything that you do in life. So if you're not willing to take a risk, then you're never going to try. So just try. If you fail, what you're going to come away with is lessons. And those lessons will help you not to fail going forward.
Just do it. Okay, can we take another question? There's somebody with their hand up in the far corner.
Hi, well done, Laulu, for this. This is amazing. My question is, there's so many things, 40 things, but what one thing will you say has the most impact in your life so far?
Wow. There's so many of them. There's so many of them. But if I was to sum up this book, I think this book is talking about learning, and I think I've always been a keen learner, and when I was younger, I went straight from primary 5 in the Nigerian school system to Form 1 because I'd done the primary school exams. So I just loved information. I just loved taking in information. I remember when we were young, my mom bought an encyclopedia for all the children, and I read through that whole encyclopedia. And so for anyone that cared to listen, I'll tell them about all the animals. I'll tell them what the animals could do. And so I just had that thing of, taking in information and learning. And I'll tell you something that happened to me and the importance of learning. And this is why learning is really so important. And I keep on learning, and I keep on learning how to learn. And learning doesn't just happen in classrooms. And so I had to unlearn that thing I had learned that you can only learn in a classroom. So you will learn through life. When my dad was building his house back in the 80s, I would sit with the workmen and I'll watch what they were doing, and I would ask them to be involved. So they'll mix the concrete, I'll mix it with them, plaster the walls and everything. I was just having fun learning something new. Years later, when I came to the United Kingdom, I did my master's. There was no job coming through. Nothing was going. I was ready. At one point, I told my friend, I said, you know what? I'm going back to the airport, and I'm going to tell them to deport me because things are not working here, and I don't even have enough money to get a ticket to go back home. So let them just, deport me, send me home. I don't want to be here anymore.
That was when you should have told them you're a terrorist. But I've got you out here fast.
I didn't have the foresight to know I would be a terrorist by then. And so a friend of mine now said, my mom wants to do some wooden flooring in the house and some painting. And then I thought to myself, I said, why is she telling me this? Do I look like a workman? And then all of a sudden, some sparks went off in my head, and I remembered what I had learned from the workmen back in my father's house. And I said, you've come to the right person. I said, I'll do it for you. I'll do it for your mom. And so I did that building work for her, and it just went from person to person to person. I was looking for money to pay off the balance of some of my school fees and all of that. Within about 6 weeks of doing the work of a workman, I got more than enough money and to spare to pay off my school fees and and everything. And I was just like, wow, learning is important. And it's not the big things that we learn, it's little things that we learn. And your teachers don't have to have a PhD. They could be people that are way below your station in life, but they might have lessons that if you take from them, will take you to your next level. So I would say learning is the most important
Let's
thing.
put our hands together. Is there a question from social media, or shall I keep going? Keep going? Oh, someone. Yes, sir. Can we give this gentleman here? This will probably be the last question, because...
Hi, Laolo.
Hi.
Great book. I can't wait to read the book. I'm sure it's going to be very, 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 very helpful in things that I'm doing in my life. But one question or advice I would like to get from you is, what advice can you give people who are not sure what they want to do, or people who think they should be doing something, but their family or friends or in reality are saying, no, that's not what you should do? What advice would you give these people trying to either find themselves or find a new workplace or find something in their life that they feel avoiding, but then people around them are not giving them the response that they want to hear?
Okay. Well, one thing I would say is you have to follow your heart, and you have to follow what you see as your dream. Vision is very personal, and as much as people around you care for you and want your best, sometimes they don't see in detail what you see. And people that change the world are people that were told that they can't a lot of the times, but they went beyond what others were seeing and pushing ahead with what they saw in their hearts, and they were able to bring that to life. Everyone has unique dreams, so just like our fingerprints are unique on our hands, so our dreams and so what we bring to the world is so unique that if you don't do it, sometimes it doesn't get done. So you just have to follow that dream right in your heart and pursue it. If you fail, like I mentioned, because what people are afraid of is that you will fail. But if you fail and you're still convinced that this is the way to go, then try it again. And then you keep on trying until it gets to a point where you can try no longer and you have to go on to something else. But you need to try. One of the lessons in this book is around regrets. And you don't want to live your life looking back and thinking, if only I had done this, or if only I had done that. You don't want to be in that position. But you can try. If it doesn't work, you retrace your steps and you come back and you do what they're telling you to do. But you must try.
Finally, I reminded you recently, about 14, 15, 16 years ago, my own life was in a mess. And Pastor Olaolu actually cancelled me. I wasn't a member of their church, but he cancelled me and assisted me. What would you say to, it doesn't matter the age, nothing seems to be going right. The targets have not been met. The goals have not been achieved. And it just looks like everything they touch for a season doesn't seem to be working. What would you say to that person, irrespective of their age?
Well, very simply, I would say to them, where there is life, there is hope. And things will turn around. I use myself again as an example. Approaching 40, my bank balance was in the negative, and I didn't have any assets, nothing. But within 2 years, all of that turned around just because I sat up and I began to take note of doing something. I would also want to thank a particular gentleman here tonight, Brother Banji Oyewumi. So at that point, I was searching for something new to do, and he through some friends of mine, he took me on a training on business analysis, and that just changed my whole outlook in life. It wasn't particularly what he said about the course, but just his perspective of life. And it's so important that whatever we're going through, we shouldn't stand alone, because there are people out there that will help. I think the human being or the human spirit is like a candle, and it needs to be ignited. When you come around people or when you come around places, if you don't seem to have any light, there are certain people that you meet that would spark that light back into you. They give you a sense of hope, a sense of belief in yourself. So I would say it's really important that we get around people that can inspire us. We all know what a candle looks like. You see the light. When you go close to it, you feel the heat. You can identify the same characteristics in people. You see the light in them. When you go close, you feel the heat. Those are the kind of people that you want to come around, and they will ignite you, and you begin to see new possibilities within yourself again. And I was just thinking.
So you're saying that if you go through a period, maybe everyone around you, NEPA, is not present. So change your association.
You change your association. You change your circles. Again, the light. If the light is not there, you're not going to see the flame. and you're not going to feel the heat. If there's no flame and heat in your surrounding, you need to move to an environment that has flame and heat.
On that note, ladies and gents, come on. You want to say one more thing?
One more thing that I would say, some people have been calling me Pastor Olaolu and
Yes.
making jokes about me not knowing some songs, but I do know some songs. I've not always been this saved.
He has a past.
So one thing I'd like to say to everyone, church is important because in church, you will find light, you will find heat. And a few days ago, I was just thinking, and this thought just came to my mind, that for me, church is not religion. Church is ignition. Because you catch the fire, you catch the heat around there. And again, I'll just appreciate Pastor Temi from House on the Rock, London Lighthouse. Because a couple of years ago, again, he preached a series of messages around reaching your potential from the book of Genesis, where it talks about the seed and how God wanted man to reproduce the seed. And I got so inspired by that I began to write. And so my first book was actually written off the back of the inspiration I got. So again, it was lights that came to me, heat that I felt that made me do something. So again, get around people that would inspire you. Get around the church that would inspire you. Get around friends that would inspire you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gents, come on, let's put our hands together.